So you just got a brand new gaming PC. And if you got it from us, then there's two things that we know are for certain. Number one, you got a great deal. And number two, you're a very intelligent and savvy individual and most likely very good looking. And if you didn't get it from us, then, well, hopefully you didn't overpay too bad. But anyways, this video will still apply to you too.
No matter, it's all the same.
Now with all of our PCs, we include a quick start guide that includes pretty much just the basics. Make sure you're plugging it into your graphics card to update and drivers, that kind of thing. And today we're going to take an in-depth look at that and put it in a video format from start to finish, and even show you how we configure the BIOS. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and reset my PC here, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at how we configure the BIOS, how to finish your Windows setup, all the software and tips that we recommend, and how to make sure you're getting the most out of your PC. So without further ado, let's get to it. Alright, so first thing first, before we reset the PC, let's go ahead and look at the BIOS. And when it comes to the BIOS, all this will be done for you by the time it comes to you. The BIOS will not reset with the Windows reset. It is completely independent, and all your BIOS information is stored in the CMOS battery. So that will not change so long as you don't pop out the little coin cell battery on your motherboard. Now all the settings for the BIOS configs that we do are basically the same. Really the only thing that's going to change manufacturer to manufacturer is obviously we are aware of what happens or what can happen when you leave on Asus's performance enhancement. So we tend to leave that off. For those who don't know about that, the reason we leave it off is because Asus performance enhancement is known to push a little too much voltage to the CPU. So just to be safe, we leave that off. Now obviously when it comes to actual overclocking, we leave all that on auto. This being a Ryzen chip, we'll let that boost itself. But obviously we put on our XMP profile, and that's really the only kind of overclocking that we're going to do for you. Next, I'll double check and make sure we have resize bar enabled. And this setting right here you won't find on all boards. This is only something you're going to find on a board that has LEDs on it like this one. And what this does, if you just want to put the PC to sleep rather than shut down, if you don't disable this, that LED is going to stay on. So I make sure that's disabled because I know it would bug the crap out of me. But if you want to leave it on and this is your PC, now you know what to look for in your BIOS. And this setting right here just says, hey, when you turn the PC on, do you want the LED to actually come on? Well, yeah, if the PC's on, I'd like it on. And it brings me to this setting right here. If you enable this, when your PC is in sleep mode, you'll still be able to plug something into it, say like your phone, and charge it. But personally, I prefer to leave this off. I just kind of think it's more of a safety thing, if anything else. I just really don't want my USB ports active when I want my PC powered down. So once the features are all taken care of, we'll come over and set the fan curves. And in this case, my CPU fan 1 setting you're seeing right here is full speed because it's actually an AIO cooler. When it comes to AIO pumps, you always want it set on full speed. It doesn't matter if your computer's just sitting there idling or not. These pumps are actually designed to operate at full speed at all times, so if you don't leave it on full speed, you're actually doing the pump quite a disservice. And as far as a typical fan curve that I prefer to set, this is what it would look like right here. Nice even intervals that really doesn't get too loud until you're at critical temperatures. And lastly, I'll check and make sure the fast boot is disabled. Now, this might be a controversial one. I know some people like fast boot, but honestly, fast boot is prone to cause problems, and I'm shipping this to a customer, so the last thing I want to do is leave on a setting that I'm pretty sure at some point is gonna necessitate a call from the customer to me, wondering why their computer won't boot. So to save myself and the customer the headache of all that, we prefer to leave it off. Now, ASRock boards don't do this, but Gigabyte boards, Asus boards, MSI boards, they all try to do this in the BIOS. They're going to leave a setting on that if you're connected to the internet, it's going to go ahead and download their software. I don't want it to do that yet. I don't want it to do it in the BIOS, especially if my customer doesn't want that on the computer at all. We don't put software on it, so we make sure that's off. Now, like I said, ASRock boards don't do that, so I can't show you what I'm talking about here, but just know that when we ship it to you, there is no software that is going to be forced on you. But that's it for the BIOS, so let's go ahead and reset Windows and we'll take it from there. So once we've configured the BIOS and tested the PC and made sure it's good to go for you, then we're ready to reset Windows completely. Now, like I said earlier, this is not going to erase any of the BIOS configurations we've done, so long as you do not remove that coin cell battery. That's your CMOS battery, which stores all of your BIOS information. So, I know it's shiny, but please don't touch it. And now we play the waiting game. And then the last thing that we do before sending the PC to you is make sure that once it gets to you, you're not going to be forced to be connected to the internet or set up a Windows account just to get into your PC. So what we do is we hit Shift F10 and then we type in the magic command. So when you first boot, this is the screen that you're going to come to. It's the Windows setup screen. So just follow the on-screen prompts and set it up the way you want it to be. So here's what the magic command did. Now if your board doesn't have Wi-Fi and you're not connected with a LAN cable at the time of this Windows setup, if we didn't do that, you wouldn't have this option down here that says I don't have internet. Now what this does here is if we click that, that's going to tell it that we want to create a local account. So we're also not going to be forced to sign into any Microsoft account or create a Microsoft account, which also requires internet. And I'm just going to call it my workshop PC. This is the most embarrassing thing I could ever show on YouTube. And all these options here are going to be up to you. Personally, I don't like Microsoft tracking everything I do, so I turn off every single one of these. All this stuff is going to do is just collect all of your data, and in turn, you're going to get personalized ads. Whoop-de-doo, I'll pass. And this isn't going to affect the operation of your PC whatsoever. No matter how much Microsoft threatens you with pop-ups and tells you that it might, it won't. So once that's all done, you'll finally be brought into Windows, which brings me to the very first things I do on any PC of my own, because these things are all going to annoy the crap out of me until I do them. So in order, here they go. Number 1, user access control. The user access control can be found with the search menu down here, and what user access control does is this. Every time you go to open a program or install something, it's going to give you this little pop-up thing here. And I hate it. I hate it. This is my PC. I wouldn't click if I didn't want to do it, okay? So I always turn it off. The second thing I do is set up my taskbar. Number 1, I never use Copilot, and I'm just going to uninstall it later. So we'll unpin that. Same thing with Edge. We'll unpin that. Same thing with the Microsoft Store. Don't need that. And I also never use this widget menu. But to get rid of the widget menu, I actually have to go into the taskbar settings. So to go to taskbar settings, right click on the taskbar and hit taskbar settings. And here you see the task view window. Simply turn it off. Now, I hate my taskbar being in the center like this. So to get it to the left side, you go down here to taskbar behaviors, alignment, choose left. Boom, there we go. Now the rest of this, it really doesn't bother me, but you can play around with all the settings and do what you will. You know, if you want the icons to expand and tell you what you're in, you can do all that, but I really don't care for all that. So that's all for me here. And then the last thing I do before connecting to the internet is make sure the power settings are set so that it never goes to sleep. I mean, it's a desktop. I don't want it to go to sleep. What if I walk away while I'm downloading something? Please don't go to sleep. So just search for power, choose a power plan, and for me, I always want the ultimate performance, because this is a gaming PC, so ultimate performance. But we also have to do something else. So we hit change plane settings, and change turn off display to never. That way the computer will not shut down and the monitor won't go to sleep to you. So next up for me, because I don't have Wi-Fi on this board and I'm like literally right on the other side of the wall of my router, I connect directly to the router. So I'm gonna go ahead and plug in my LAN cable, and then we're gonna kiss Microsoft Edge bye-bye. So for me, I prefer Google Chrome, but that's just me. Whatever browser you want, that's up to you. And hey, if you really like Edge, go ahead and keep it. The funny thing is, even Microsoft knows that nobody likes Microsoft Edge, because watch, once we go to reset the default browser to Chrome, it's gonna be like, but are you sure? I actually didn't do it that time. That's weird. Normally it says, but are you sure? Alright, and the last of the annoyances is Windows updates. Like you saw, we reset Windows in the hard drive, so once it gets to you and it first connects to the internet, it's going to want to do a lot of updates. So, we'll just go ahead and search update, check for updates, and then even though it says there's none, oh look, all of a sudden there's updates. Alright, so now that we have internet, it's time to get our GPU drivers installed. Now the easiest way to do this is if you have an AMD card, download the Adrenalin software. If you have an NVIDIA card, download the NVIDIA software. And you can go to their website and download these drivers manually and install them that way, but I prefer to just leave this app installed and every once in a while check and see if there's a driver update and just have it automatically update for me. It's so much easier. So in my case, I'm using the RTX 3070, so we'll need the NVIDIA app. Let it download and click to install. As far as the rest of the features of this app, I really only use this just to download the drivers, so all the screen prompts that you'll get while installing it, I click no. Game ready driver because this is a gaming PC. No, I'll choose my own in-game settings, thank you very much. And no, I prefer to use MSI Afterburner for my overlay, so I turn this off too. And in this case, I actually already have the drivers installed, but if you have an NVIDIA card, all you need to do to get your drivers is click right here, and if you have an update available, you'll see it right here. In this case, it says reinstall because I already have it done. So, moving on. Now to get the most out of your GPU, as you'll see later, I actually prefer using MSI Afterburner for this, and you can use MSI Afterburner for either NVIDIA or AMD cards. But in this case, let's go ahead and see how we do it within the NVIDIA app, and if you have an AMD card, it's going to be very similar within the Adrenalin software. But if you really want to use the NVIDIA app to do it, all you have to do is go to System, and slide this power maximum all the way up. Now, ignore that. Alright, this is not overclocking. I think most of the PC community would agree that this is not overclocking. This is not going to tell your card to draw 110% power at all times. All it's going to tell it is, hey, if you need a little bit of extra power every now and then, go ahead and take it. That's okay. But as you'll see, if you're using some monitor software, it is not going to be pulling 110% power at all times, even though most people would probably like it to. Now, if you're like me and you want to use MSI Afterburner to do that, you can leave the NVIDIA app installed. As long as you don't open it, it's not going to cause any problems. Just leave the overlay disabled, it'll be fine. But now that our drivers are installed, let's make sure that our monitor is running at its maximum resolution and refresh rate. Right click on the desktop, hit display settings, and you'll see right here that because this is a 1440p monitor, we got 2560 by 1440, and while we're here, we can go ahead and enable HDR. And now to make sure that we're running at our monitor's maximum refresh rate, just go down here to Advanced Display, and as you can see here, until we change it, this is actually a 180 Hz monitor. So, if you never came here and changed that, you would be getting 1/3 of your frames at all time. So, let's bump that up. Now you can see, look how much smoother that is. Yummy, 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 yummy. Now when it comes to your motherboard software, you don't necessarily need it, but I recommend going ahead and installing it anyways because it's a great easy way to make sure your drivers stay up to date. And if you have some RGB plugged into the motherboard with 3-pin, you're probably going to have to use that to control the RGB anyways. So in this case, I have an ASRock board, so let's get the ASRock app. And to find out what your motherboard software name is, all you really need to do is take the brand name and Google it with utility software. For instance, if you had Asus, just type Asus utility software and you'll find out that it's Armory Crate. But anyway, if you have ASRock, you're going to need 2 different ones if you want to control the RGB with it as well. But in this case, I've already done it, but to get the RGB software for ASRock boards, just open the app shop, live update, and here you'll see Polychrome. When you go to live update, it's only going to display updates that are actually available to you. In this case, I've already updated the chipset drivers and installed Polychrome, so you don't see it here. But normally, you would see AMD chipset software, Intel software, and Polychrome. And I don't want these other things. And honestly, after you've done that, you can go ahead and uninstall this. It's really doing nothing for you. So let's get rid of it. Now to fix the rainbowy mess we got going on, let's open up Polychrome. And unfortunately, in this PC's case, the only thing that I can't control RGB-wise would be the GPU. I could if I wanted to download Armory Crate, but I'm not going to download an extra motherboard utility software specifically just to control a couple little LEDs on a GPU. I'm fine with it. If there's one good thing about Polychrome is once you've got everything set, you can actually go ahead and exit it, and it's not going to change your LEDs until you shut down again, and you're going to have to reopen it anyways. Now, speaking of applications running in the background that you don't want draining your resources while you're gaming, I can't recommend enough that you go down here to the task manager and you limit your startup applications. Click this right here, and as you can see, I've already done this. All these things are set to disabled because I don't even need this installed at all. I'm going to get rid of it. I don't use Teams. I don't want Edge. I don't want it linked to my phone. I don't use OneDrive, so I don't need any of this stuff. And Skype, we're going to get rid of that too. All these programs, had you not come in here and done this, would have been running every time you start your computer, pulling all your resources while you're trying to game. So can't recommend enough that you come here and do this. And now really at this point, you're good to go. Your monitor's all set, your drivers are all installed, and your GPU's doing everything that it can to deliver you that sweet FPS. But if you're like me and you like using certain types of monitoring software and making sure that every program you don't want is removed from your hard drive, then keep watching. So before we get to the monitoring, let's go ahead and get rid of all the crap we don't want. So come down here and search add or remove programs. And there's nothing in this menu you can install that's integral to your system's operation. When it comes to things like that, this menu right here will not let you uninstall them. Just make sure you don't delete your extensions. And I'm not going to put it in this video, but if you want to get rid of Edge, I recommend Revo Uninstaller. It'll allow you to go in and actually remove Microsoft Edge, and the beauty about it is it also goes and finds all the registry files in your PC and gets rid of that too. And no, I'm not sponsored by them. I have no idea who makes it, but it's a great tool. Now when it comes to using an overlay and monitoring software while you're gaming to see what your temperatures are like, what your frame rate is, I prefer to use MSI Afterburner, and that's also where I use the power sliders to make sure my GPU is doing all it can. So let's go ahead and download that. And for whatever reason, the version on their website is not actually the most current and best one, so go to Guru 3D and get the 4.6.6 beta. We'll extract the files, and we'll go ahead and install. Now MSI Afterburner is actually a two-part software. You'll notice when you're installing this, it's going to ask you if you also want to install Riva Tuner Statistics Server. That's the actual overlay when it comes to MSI Afterburner, so if you want to see what's going on with your system while you're gaming, you're going to have to install that as well. And see, here it's asking if we want the overlay as well. So if you want the overlay, make sure the box is checked. Now I'm not going to make this into an MSI Afterburner tutorial, but just to show you if you didn't want to use the NVIDIA app for the power sliders, this is where you would do it with the newest version of MSI Afterburner. Right there, it's all the same thing. Just hit apply, and you're done. And you can even save user profiles here and make it start on Windows Startup so you don't even have to come in here again. And the last tip has to do with storage. So what happens if you have a ton of games you want to play at once and you only have one hard drive in your system and you don't want to keep uninstalling and reinstalling? Say you want to use an external hard drive. How would you get that to launch with Steam? Well, let's go ahead and download Steam and I'll show you how. So to use an external hard drive with Steam games, all you need to do is plug in the drive, number one, come up here to Steam, Settings, go down here to Storage, click this drop down and hit Add a Drive. and then you should see your other drive that you have plugged in. In my case, this would be it. So we'll hit add, and that's going to create a registry in that drive so that you can install games onto it. So now if you see our drop down, now we have 2. So if we come over here and we try to install a game, let's pick Doom Eternal, click install, you'll now see we have 2 different options. So we can install it on the external drive. Now if you're moving from PC to PC like me sometimes in this case, and say you already had Steam games installed on that drive, all you would need to do is once you've added the drive, you'll have to go up here and hit browse folder and go into the common Steam folder and find your games here. And all you really need to do is try to launch one, and it will sync with all the games on the drive in your Steam library. And there you go. That's all there is to it. So again, if you bought it from us, thank you very much and enjoy your brand new powerful gaming PC. And if you didn't, I'm just kidding. Enjoy it anyways. You earned it. And hopefully this helps you make sure you're getting the most out of your new PC as well. And if there's anything I didn't cover in this video, if there's any questions, never hesitate to reach out to us on our website. You can find the link to our website in our bio. And until then, we'll see you guys next time.